Yo, today we got an exclusive. This is none other than some Rondo paperwork. We got some Rondo implications, man. All this back and forth with Cdai and all this that's going on, man. The homies went ahead and dropped the paperwork, man. Shout out to my guys. As you see, their watermarks are on the screen. Take a minute of your time and go follow them on Instagram, man. They drop way quicker than a lot of people that you subscribe to now, I'm sure. Definitely want to go follow these ads you see on this paperwork here. But before you do that too, hit the subscribe button on my channel, thumb up the video, as you know I support Gang and them and they support me, man, and we going all the way to the top. We all got this how we coming, man. All right, so let's drop this, man. We got some paperwork here we gonna read. This is the first document. We only got a few pages now. They only want to leak a few right now at this time. We gonna do it in spurts. Somebody did something today. I'll just say that, and this is gonna come out now. All right, defendant. Let's zoom in some here so we can see. Defendant Clint Massey and his co-defendant Courtney Ely were convicted of murder and shooting death of Javon Boyd. The state's evidence showed that Boyd, a private taxi driver, was waiting for his fare when Massey and Ely approached the taxi and shot Boyd. Although there was conflicting evidence as to who did the actual shooting. On appeal, Massey argues that his counsel, was ineffective for not more vigorously pursuing a defense theory that Ely was the sole shooter. 2. The trial court erred in allowing hearsay regarding what Massey was wearing on the night of the murder. 3, and I'm sorry I read that as I at first, that is just an indication for a number. 3, a mistrial should have been granted because the victim's family made an outburst during the trial. And 4, prior to trial, the court erred when it conducted a material witness hearing without notice to Massey. We decline to adjudicate Massey's last contention since it relies on matters outside the record and is therefore inappropriate for resolution on direct review. Finding no merit in his or other claims of error, we affirm. On the night of February 21st, 2014, defendants attended a party at 39th Street and Wentworth Avenue in the Wentworth Gardens housing project. Massey wore a tiger-striped jogging suit and Ely wore a Burberry shirt with white pants. Also attending the party were Caprice Jones, Jasmine Brown, Jamonte Carpenter, Takeet Herbert, and Jerome Anderson. Defendants left the party with Herbert in Herbert's van. After they left, Johns, who remained at the party, got into an argument with a group of women known as Pretty in Pink because Johns disliked the song that was being played. As they argued, someone fired a gun into the air multiple times. Johns did not see who fired the shots, but she guessed that the shooter wanted to stop the argument because it was too loud. The gunshots did not hit anyone. After the altercation, Johns left the party with Brown, Carpenter, and Anderson. They left in John's car with Anderson driving. Carpenter made a phone call to either Massey or Ely, who were still with Herbert in their van, and told them about the altercation at the party. Carpenter put the call on speakerphone and Brown could hear Ely's voice, which she recognized on the other end. Anderson drove to Wendy's where they met up with a red car in Herbert's van. Ely and Massey exited the van and got into the red car along with a man named D. Rose. A fourth man, unidentified at trial, was the driver. The 3 vehicles drove back toward Wentworth Gardens in a convoy. First the red car, then Herbert's van, then John's car. According to Johns, they intended to see who shot at them and deal with the matter. Meanwhile, LaToya Adams was assisting her mother in Wentworth Gardens. Around 3 a.m. on the morning of February 22nd, she called for a taxi to go to a friend's house. Boyd, who was... All right, we're going to get down to the next page here. Let's make sure that's the next one. Alright, Boyd, who was, we're going to pick up here. Ooh, on this page, as you saw, we finished that one. Alright, in closing argument, Massey's counsel argued that the state witnesses were telling the police nonsense about who the shooters were in order to avoid being charged with the murder themselves. He pointed out that Massey was not present for the altercation at the party, his voice was not heard in Carpenter's phone call to Ely, and his face could not be identified. In the blurry surveillance video of the shooting. Massey's counsel also stated, of those 3 eyewitnesses, did any of them point to my client and say he was the shooter? None. Likewise, Ely argued. Not one single witness took the stand and said Courtney Ely shot a weapon. There's no testimony that Courtney Ely ever shot a gun, and I am not insinuating that Clint Massey shot a gun. I am insinuating that those women on that stand had a reason to lie. Defendants were tried before a single jury. For both defendants, the state sought conviction for first-degree murder and a 15-year sentence enhancement for being armed with a firearm during the commission of the offense. The jury was instructed concerning accountability as to both the murder and the firearm allegation. The jury returned a general verdict finding both defendants guilty for first-degree murder, but it found that the firearm allegation was proven only as to Massey. Following a sentencing hearing, the court sentenced Massey to 39 years of imprisonment. Analysis. Massey argues that 1. His trial counsel was ineffective for not more vigorously pursuing a defense theory that Ely was the sole shooter. 2. That the trial court erred in allowing Brown's hearsay statements regarding what Massey wore at the time of the offense. 3. A mistrial should have been granted when the victim's family made an outburst during trial. And 4. Prior to the trial court erred when it declared Johns to be a material witness without notice to Massey. Massey argues that his trial counsel should have more vigorously pursued that theory that Ely was the sole shooter and that Massey was not accountable for his actions. Ineffective assistance of counsel. So he definitely filed for ineffective assistance of counsel. Let me make sure. Alright. Yep, ineffective counsel. Alright, here we go. More specifically, Massey argues that counsel should have moved to sever the trial, objected to omission of incriminating hearsay statements from Ely. 3. Argued in closing that Ely was the sole shooter. And 4. Objected to Ely's closing argument that Ely was not the shooter. To establish an effective assistance of counsel, a defendant must prove that counsel's performance was objectively and unreasonable, and for counsel's errors, the outcome of the proceeding would have been different. People versus Patterson. See People versus Patterson. In assessing the first, Strickland versus Washington, and they just outline the cases that you have to look at to prove that ineffective counsel. A defense decision not to seek a severance is generally considered trial strategy. Moreover, it is well established that defendants jointly indicted are to be jointly, defendants jointly indicted are to be jointly tried unless fairness to one of the defendants requires a separate trial to avoid prejudice. All right. Here, Ely made no hearsay admissions that implicated Massey. Ely implicated himself by telling Brown that he asked the victim if he was from over here and then saying that it was man down, i.e. that the victim was dead. But Ely did not mention Massey, let alone place Massey at the scene of the crime or reference any role Massey might have played in the shooting. Massey nevertheless argues that his defense was antagonistic to Ely's defense since multiple witnesses placed both defendants at the scene of the shooting, but the ballistic evidence suggested a single murder weapon, and there was conflicting evidence as to who wielded it. Although we agree that Massey and Ely's defenses were potentially antagonistic, we disagree that any resulting antagonism was prejudicial to Massey. On the contrary, without the benefit of hindsight, Massey's attorney could reasonably have preferred a joint trial because the state's evidence against Ely was stronger, and if the jury chose to convict just one man, it would more likely be Ely. When Carpenter called to discuss the altercation at the party, Brown recognized Ely's voice and not Massey's on the other end. Ely was the one who... And that is the end of that document that we have there, man. They will be dropping more documents, man. This is some of the Cdai Rondo case. This is some of Cdai's appeal paperwork, man. We got this going crazy, man. Hit that subscribe button and thumb up the video for more. Will be dropping, and you don't want to miss it. Go follow these ats on this paperwork as well on IG, man. These are the homies. Peace. Thanks.